Hi everybody, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we will be continuing our tour of distant objects by taking a look for Haumea, the most likely dwarf planet after Pluto and Eris. Pluto and Eris, of course, have their own videos. Ceres is another dwarf planet in the asteroid belt, the closest one to us, but Ceres will get its own video at a future date, potentially when we're looking at asteroids. Taking a look at the sky here very quickly, we have Venus still visible just above the sunrise, Saturn almost in the middle of the sky by the time it's dark, and we have that square of Pegasus nice and high in the sky, still sharing space with the summer triangle, but we still have some glow of sunset there. By the time it's actually dark, as early as 6:30, we can see that the summer triangle is definitely more towards the west and the square of Pegasus is a lot closer to the south. We are going to be looking for Haumea, which isn't visible to the naked eye. It doesn't matter if we go out to the countryside, even without light pollution, Haumea is an incredibly distant object. And I don't know exactly where it is, so I can't guarantee that it will be above the horizon during the day for Ireland or indeed anywhere on Earth. There we go. It's over in this direction, over in the west. It looks like, yeah, it's just above the sun there. So maybe I'll be able to get it above the horizon in the morning. There we go, just before the sunrise. Yeah, here at about 4 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, just under Arcturus. So that's nice. That means Haumea won't be too hard to find. We've got the plough nice and high above the east just before sunrise. Follow the arc of the handle of the plough to Arcturus, and just underneath it there will be Haumea. Haumea is how I'm pronouncing it. Haumea. Haumea may be closer to the original Hawaiian because it is Hawaiian. As we move further out, we're looking at things that we've discovered more recently, and even though the tradition of naming planets after Greek and Roman mythology was, well, it was the tradition all through the 17 and 1800s, from the classical times right through to really the modern day. But as we started to discover more and more, and as astronomy became more international, objects started to get names in other languages, and this is something I've mentioned before. Haumea is one of the candidate dwarf planets. It's listed here as a dwarf planet. I'll see if I can find the speed of its rotation. You can see there, of course, its year is incredibly long, almost 300 Earth years. I don't seem to be getting a day out of this, but Haumea does spin very, very quickly. There are two moons around Haumea, Hi'iaka and Namaka, and these are, well, they're moons, and moons are very, very useful when it comes to figuring out more about an object in space. It's got the diameter there, 6,000 kilometers, which is pretty big. That's definitely similar to the size of some of the other dwarf planets. But as I've mentioned before, size isn't really what matters. What matters, well as size, what matters is hydrostatic equilibrium. These need to be solid balls of rock, objects that have coalesced, not just loose groups of material kind of floating around together, which some of these distant objects seem to be. We've never visited Haumea, but because of the moons that are orbiting it, we've got a fairly good idea of its density and its mass. And density and mass are some of the more important things when it comes to deciding if something is a dwarf planet or not. So Pluto and Eris, let's just take another quick look just to see the size of Pluto. Oh, well, it's right there. That's handy. So Pluto, we've got the discovery of it there. Its diameter might be down off the bottom. No, there we go. Diameter 2,000 kilometers. We'll take a quick look at Eris as well. It has a day period there of hundreds of hours, so that indicates that Pluto is rotating pretty slowly. Eris, if we take a look at Eris, we should get another similar value for its diameter. Yeah, 2,600 kilometers. And it has no Day, no day there at all. It's also got a very, very long year. Yeah, nope, doesn't seem to have any sort of day. So we know that Haumea is rotating quite quickly. It's even got a slightly strange shape thanks to the speed of its rotation. It's up there in the couple of thousand kilometers across, which would bring it to be the right size to be a dwarf planet. But if it is a loose collection of rock, the right size to be a dwarf planet, then it's still not a dwarf planet because it's a loose collection of rock. These things need to be sort of solidified together. Hydrostatic equilibrium needs to be reached, so there needs to be enough pressure on stuff on the inside to kind of smush it all together. Haumea is one of the many objects that is now getting named in languages other than Latin and Greek. There is some controversy around the discovery of Haumea, as well as being an object that may be a dwarf planet, and all of the controversy about dwarf planets. Haumea was, or seems to have been, discovered by one group of researchers, and then also discovered by another group of researchers. The second group of researchers, or so it seems, announced it first, even though apparently the first group of researchers discovered it first. So Haumea, this Hawaiian name, is the name that has currently been accepted, and that was proposed by the American astronomy team. They were working out of Caltech, they were astronomy researchers. They found Haumea apparently around 2004, but they didn't announce it. There was a Spanish team of astronomers who also discovered Haumea. They announced it first, and apparently the Spanish team was working with images that they had taken first, so images taken in 2003 with the discovery announced in 2005, even though the American group had apparently discovered it in 2004 but hadn't announced it. People don't always rush to announce these things. I mean, if you make a mistake, it can be quite embarrassing. So double checking, making sure that you've discovered it is very important in astronomy. You can see here there's no discoverer listed. As far as I can tell, there's no discoverer officially listed by the International Astronomical Union either. So they're not saying who discovered it officially, but this name was proposed by the American group. The Spanish group had proposed the name of an Iberian goddess rather than a Hawaiian goddess. So still getting named after a goddess. So that's something at least. And it would have been in a... I believe that the name of the Iberian goddess was in an extinct language. An extinct Iberian Romance languages are an extinct Celtic language from Iberia. Either way, even though the official discoverer of this is considered controversial, the name that's been given is the name from the American group. So it seems like they have been accepted as the discoverer, regardless of any controversy. But the Spanish team, who also found Haumea, maybe they found it afterward, maybe they found it before, maybe they found it afterward in pictures taken before and were just the first people to say it. I don't know the truth behind the controversy or all of the details, but I will mention both groups that were involved in the discovery because there was controversy about it. And I may not know the truth, but I will at least acknowledge the fact that there was some controversy involved. So that's Haumea. We will continue looking at these distant objects, but as we move forward, we're going to be looking at objects where their status as a dwarf planet, other than Ceres, the status of Ceres as a dwarf planet is pretty well accepted, but for a lot of the other objects, their status as a dwarf planet is less clear. There are a lot of objects that are considered candidate dwarf planets, even though they're not actually considered full dwarf planets yet. We just don't know enough. Here we are, nice and early in the morning. Well, I say nice and early in the morning, 7:15. That's almost late in the morning. Definitely in the countryside, but Mars and Jupiter very, very clearly visible. Jupiter will definitely be behind that tree by the time the sun rises. It may not be completely under the horizon, so if you do have a clear view, 8 o'clock even, you may still be able to see Jupiter. Mars is definitely still there. If you're in the countryside, no Mercury yet. We will be waiting until December before we get Mercury back in the morning. If you're in the equator, if you're in the right location, you may still be able to see Mercury in the evening at the moment, though not for long. It will be disappearing, getting too close to the sun very soon. I hope you enjoyed that quick video talking about Haumea and a little bit about the controversy behind its name and a little bit about a little bit more on dwarf planets and how some objects can be kind of on the edge. If you did enjoy this video, please do like it. You can also read some of this information on my website, previenscontent.ie, and I hope that you'll join me back here next time.